Chapter 1. The Divided World, Above and Below. In the year 2514, the world had transformed into a dichotomy of existence, split between the opulence of the Eternals and the struggle of the Breeders. High above the Earth's surface, floating cities adorned the sky, a realm known as the Eternals' domain. These magnificent structures, a harmonious blend of technology and luxury, hovered amidst the clouds, disconnected from the world below. The Eternals, having chosen a life of prolonged luxury at the cost of their ability to bear children, had embraced an existence that defied the very essence of nature. Their cities were marvels of modern engineering, with buildings made of reflective glass and steel that shone like beacons of progress. Automated systems managed every need, from climate control to elaborate security measures. The streets, if they could be called that, were clean to the point of sterility, lined with lush, artificially maintained greenery. Flying cars glided silently between the skyscrapers, leaving trails of soft light in their wake. The Eternals themselves, dressed in the finest fabrics, spent their days indulging in pleasures that the lower world could scarcely imagine. They dined on cuisine crafted by robotic chefs, attended holographic concerts that defied the limits of reality, and socialized at parties where the champagne never ceased to flow and the music never died. Yet, beneath this veneer of perfection, there was an unspoken void, the absence of children's laughter, the lack of familial warmth, a sacrifice made for eternal life. Contrastingly, far below the floating utopias, the world of the Breeders was marked by its stark reality. Gone were the advanced technologies and luxuries of the Eternals. Here, on the surface, life was about survival. The Breeders lived in the remnants of old cities, where buildings stood cracked and worn by time. Streets that once buzzed with life now lay mostly silent, filled with the tension of fear. The Breeders, aware of the constant threat posed by the enforcers, lived in a state of perpetual caution, their freedoms curtailed by the laws of the world above. Their houses, cobbled together from whatever materials were at hand, provided shelter but little comfort. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and the remnants of a world left to decay. Markets, once the heart of these communities, now operated in hushed tones, their vendors selling what little they could scavenge. The most poignant symbol of their struggle was the children, hidden away, taught to be silent, a necessary measure to protect them from the enforcers who patrolled the streets with a cold efficiency. Rain often fell in this lower world, a relentless downpour that seemed to wash away hope, leaving behind only a deep-seated resilience. The people moved like shadows, their eyes always watchful, their movements calculated to avoid unwanted attention. The stark difference between the two worlds was not just in their appearance, but in the very essence of how life was experienced, one in boundless luxury, the other in constant survival. Chapter 2. Eternals, the Price of Immortality. In the lofty realms of the Eternals, life was an unending gala, a celebration of their transcendence over the mortal coil. The floating cities were not just marvels of human innovation, but also hubs of ceaseless revelry and technological wonders. The Eternals, adorned in attire that was as much art as clothing, gathered at parties that were the pinnacle of extravagance. Music, composed by AI maestros and played on instruments that blurred the line between digital and physical, filled the air. Holographic displays painted the skies with vivid, dreamlike panoramas, and the guests indulged in culinary delights that defied the imagination. However, the core of their eternal youth lay in the advanced biotechnology that ran like a silent river through their society. Nanomachines in their bloodstream repaired aging cells. Genetic modifications halted the natural decay of their bodies, and bespoke drugs tailored to each individual ensured that diseases were but relics of the past. Their life, artificially extended, was a masterpiece of scientific prowess. But this immortality came at a profound cost. The loss of their ability to bear children, a choice made centuries ago to control population and resource consumption. At one such party, amidst a sea of jubilant faces, stood Orion, an enforcer of the Eternals' code. As he watched the opulence around him, A sense of disconnection gnawed at his consciousness. The laughter felt hollow, the conversation superficial. It dawned on him that amidst this pursuit of pleasure, something quintessentially human was lost. The people around him, including himself, had become so enthralled with their own longevity and superiority that they had forgotten the essence of what it meant to be truly human. Orion's introspection deepened as he observed his peers, who lived in a bubble of self-obsession and vanity. Their conversations, laced with subtle disdain for the breeders, revealed a deep-seated belief in their own superiority. To the Eternals, the breeders were a distant, almost forgotten part of humanity, one that had chosen the messiness of a natural life over the pristine immortality of the Eternals. Orion, once a firm believer in the eternal way of life, now felt a growing unease. The realization that his society had traded its humanity for eternal life began to take root. In their quest for immortality, the Eternals had lost the very things that defined life: the joys of parenthood, the growth through struggles, the cycle of life and death, and most importantly, the ability to connect deeply with one another. They had become prisoners of their own making, caged in an endless loop of superficial pleasures. Chapter 3. The Enforcer's Role, Guardian of the Code. Through the gloomy streets of the breeder's world, Orion moved with a purpose that belied his inner turmoil. Clad in the uniform of an enforcer, his presence was a stark reminder of the Eternal's dominion. His latest assignment was grim yet clear: to ensure that none among the Eternals succumbed to the temptation of a life among the breeders, a life that included the forbidden act of procreation. On this day, his mission led him to a ramshackle dwelling at the edge of the breeder's territory. The building, barely holding itself together, was a sharp contrast to the pristine structures of the Eternals. Inside, the conditions were deplorable, a stark embodiment of poverty. Newspapers served as bedding, empty cans of food littered the floor, and the air was heavy with the scent of despair. In this squalid room lived a mother with her 2 children, their existence a violation of the sacred laws Orion was sworn to uphold. The mother, worn down by the hardships of her life, looked up at Orion with a resigned fear. Her children, embodiments of innocence, huddled beside her, their eyes wide with fright. With a heavy heart, Orion signalled his team, and the enforcers burst into the room. The scene that unfolded was chaotic. The mother was forcibly taken away, her cries echoing off the decaying walls, mingling with the terrified screams of her children. Left alone with the 2 small, trembling figures, Orion stood in silence. His duty was clear, yet as he looked into their innocent eyes, a wave of doubt washed over him. He was tasked with eliminating any threat to the Eternal's way of life, and these children, by the mere fact of their existence, were such a threat. But in that moment, the line between duty and morality blurred. Orion left the house, the fate of the children undisclosed, his mind a battleground of conflicting emotions. The disparity between the luxurious eternity of the Eternals and the desperate struggle for survival of the breeders had never been more apparent to him. The questions that now haunted him were ones of justice and righteousness. Was the eternal paradise above worth the price paid by those below? In enforcing the laws of the Eternals, was he protecting a utopian society or merely perpetuating a cycle of oppression? As Orion walked away from the decrepit building, his once steadfast belief in the eternal code began to waver. The seeds of a profound transformation were sown, not just in his actions, but in his very understanding of the world he inhabited. Chapter 4. A Glimpse of Wonder. Orion, garbed in the imposing uniform of an enforcer, patrolled the breeder's district, a place where time seemed to have stood still amidst the crumbling facades and relics of a bygone era. His gaze fell upon a toy store, its windows displaying an array of playthings, each bearing the marks of age and neglect. Among these faded treasures, a woman hastily made her purchase, her movements tinged with a palpable anxiety upon noticing Orion. Driven by an instinct he couldn't quite place, Orion followed her through the winding alleys to a modest dwelling, its walls echoing stories of simpler times. Through the half-open door, he glimpsed a scene that struck a chord within him. A child, immersed in a world of imagination, played on the floor with toys that were mere fragments of objects. Their laughter, pure and unfettered, filled the room with a warmth that contrasted sharply with the bleakness outside. The mother, upon noticing Orion's towering figure, was seized by fear. Her words, laced with a mother's love and desperation, painted a vivid picture of her life. A life where the joy of her child was a beacon of hope in a world overshadowed by the constant threat of the enforcers. Orion, trained to uphold the law without question, found himself unexpectedly moved by the scene before him. The child's innocent joy and the mother's unwavering affection unveiled a facet of life he had never experienced. As he grappled with his newfound emotions, the situation escalated. The mother, in a sudden burst of protective fervour, lunged at Orion, her actions driven by the primal instinct to safeguard her child. Reacting with trained precision, Orion subdued her, his weapon a cold reminder of the authority he wielded. The mother's pleas, filled with fear for her child's safety, echoed in the room, amplifying the turmoil within Orion. Stepping outside, Orion sought a moment's respite, only to be confronted by his partner. Accusations of betrayal hung heavily in the air, the tension escalating to a near breaking point. In a fleeting moment of conflict, Orion's resolve hardened. He acted swiftly, silencing the threat posed by his fellow enforcer. In the aftermath, as the rain gently fell, washing over the world in a soothing rhythm, Orion stood alone, his thoughts adrift. The encounter had irrevocably altered his perception. He realized that life's essence lay not in the rigid adherence to rules, but in the profound connections and experiences that give it meaning. Protecting the mother and her child had awakened a sense of fulfillment in him, a realization of life's true value. Chapter 5. Final Stand. The Cost of Humanity. As the rain continued to fall, washing over the dimly lit streets of the Breeders' District, Orion stood alone, the echoes of his confrontation fading into the night. It was then he felt it, a sharp, burning pain in his side. Looking down, he realized he had been shot during the scuffle with his fellow enforcer. The reality of his situation settled in. His time was drawing to a close. Orion staggered through the alleys, each step a battle against the growing weakness in his body. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, reflecting on the life he had led, the decisions he had made, and the path that had brought him to this moment. The world around him, once a symbol of oppression and control, now seemed different, almost peaceful. He found himself in an open space, away from the sheltering shadows of the buildings. The dark, oppressive clouds that had hung over the district for so long began to part, revealing a glimpse of the sun. Its rays pierced through the gloom, casting a warm, golden light that touched Orion's face. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, he felt the sun's comforting warmth. In these final moments, Orion lay down, the cool, damp ground beneath him. He closed his eyes, a sense of serenity enveloping him. The sounds of the district, the distant laughter of children, the gentle patter of rain all merged into a harmonious symphony. A slight smile graced his lips as he took a deep breath, embracing the peace he had found. Orion's journey had been one of profound transformation. From a steadfast enforcer of the Eternal's code to a guardian of the very essence of humanity, he had come to understand the true meaning of existence. It was not about living forever in a world detached from reality, but about experiencing the depth and richness of life, with all its joys and sorrows. As Orion exhaled his last breath, the Breeder's world, once a place of fear and despair under his watch, now represented a symbol of hope and resilience. In his sacrifice, Orion had not only protected a breeder family, but had also reclaimed his humanity. Hey there, thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video interesting and enjoyable. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps out a lot. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and hit that bell icon so you won't miss any of our future videos. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to drop a comment below. I love hearing from you all. And if you're looking for more content to enjoy, check out our other videos. You might find something else you love. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.